Hello and welcome back to another episode of MTG Money. Today we're going to talk about what you should be buying from Strixhaven. I'm Matt, your host and the owner of Top Shelf Games in a cloudy Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So I'm filming this on the Friday release of the Strixhaven set, along with the release of Commander 2021. And the reason why I think this is pertinent information is that a lot of the things that we're going to be looking at are quite timely. We're going to be talking about picking up some cards that are going to be at their absolute bottom on release day or the day after. Typically the Friday and Saturday of release is when we see prices of the cards from a new set go the lowest. And this has actually only been exacerbated by the pandemic, when stores are cracking a lot of product in order to put it online. So I think a lot of this information will teach you a lot of lessons that you can take for sets going forward. One other thing to note is that the cards to buy that I'm going to be mentioning are going to be primarily based on if you want to pick something up at its cheapest possible price, or if you're looking to speculate on cards and hopefully make some money on the cards that you're buying down the road. So with that, let's move over to Edhrec, and Edhrec is a great tool to see what is going to be the most popular in Commander when it comes to new sets being released, along with checking out what cards have been most popular from any previous set. So we're going to click on cards because we want to see what the most played cards are. We don't care too much about the commanders in the set. And one other thing about Edhrec is they base it on a percentage of how many decks a certain card could go in. So take Fracture, for instance. It is in 23% of all white and black decks that have been built since the card has been released, which is great. It does mean it's being widely played. However, 23% only accounts for 716 total decks. Next, we've got Stormkiln Artist, which is being played quite a bit, 1,484 decks. However, it's an uncommon, so at that 50 cents, 60 cents, probably something I'm going to want to stay away from, because unless we take a card like Veil of Summer, which I believe was coursed at 20, most of these cards are not going to be widely played enough to make a real difference in price, and being that it's an uncommon, again, the supply is going to be high enough that they don't jump up in price as much as a rare or a mythic would. So as we keep going here, one of the things I like to do when I'm speculating on a card is look for a monocolored card. So our first one is Archmage Meredith, currently sitting at $1.20 on TCG Player, which is this middle number here. Card Kingdom on the left and Cool Stuff Inc. on the right. So as we can see, it is in 21% of the almost 6,000 decks that have been built since they loaded Strixhaven onto the Edhrec site. So it's in 1,213 decks. We're going to keep scrolling, but that is definitely one we want to take note of here. So another big one is Belladros Witherbloom at $13 on TCG Player. Only 500 decks, though, roughly. And that one, again, you've got your two colors that it has to fit into, and kind of same with Valentin over right next to it here. Your options are a little limited when you do two colors, and even more so as you add more colors into the mix, because there are just less decks that card can fit into. So let's keep going here. We're just going to look for anything else that jumps out at us. And as we scroll here, I do just want to note that there are obviously other formats other than EDH or Commander. Modern, Standard, obviously. However, there aren't quite the same sites that are aggregating the data that make it as useful to us as Edhrec. And being that Commander is the biggest format outside of just straight kitchen table casual, that's really the one that I pay attention to when I'm looking to speculate, because Standard's going to rotate out eventually. It's pretty tough to keep up with the metagame in that set, or in that format. Modern, although it stays a little more static, it's pretty tough to tell just looking at a brand new set when it's released, what is going to be a power level that's going to make a difference in that set. But here we've got all the commander data, so that's something that we can really put to use even on the release day of the cards like this. Keep going. Just of note, and this is only because I've kind of searched the best-selling cards on TCG Player before I did this. This Wandering Archaic is interesting in that it's colorless, and let's just read its ability really quick. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may pay 2. If they don't, you, as the player that controls Wandering Archaic, can copy that spell, choosing new targets for the copy. I'm almost kind of surprised that it's only in 813 decks, and one thing to remember about this, and kind of why it's so far down on the list, is it's only in 6% of the almost 13,000 that it could be in at this point. However, 813 decks, remember, when we're looking at that Archmage Meredith, that is only in 1,200. So let's compare the two. The Wandering Archaic is only in 400 less decks than the Archmage Meredith. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time saying that. Hopefully by the end of this video I can roll it off a little easier. But that's another card I think we want to look out for. And again, like I said, it is one of the best-selling cards on TCG Player, so I'm already aware that there is some demand for that. So at this time, let's go over to TCG Player. I've already got the Archmage Meredith loaded up, and a couple filters that I've turned on when I'm looking for this. I will usually turn on Near Mint, and let's just fire up Lightly Played. Some vendors will throw a lot of copies up that are listed under Lightly Played, so nobody can really have an issue when the cards come in the mail if one or two of them got dinged up. So that's just another trick that I kind of like to use to see the full range of options that are out there for buying a card. And then the other one is to buy 4 or more. This is obviously, again, for someone that's speculating on them, although you are going to get the lowest prices typically on release day, the Friday, or the Saturday after. So if you are just looking to buy single cards for your own use, really, still a really great time to buy. It's just, you probably aren't going to be wanting to turn that 4 or more filter on. But let's go ahead and look at Archmage Meredith. So we have $1.32, 16 copies. And then we've got a Near Mint foil, $1.39, with 116 copies listed. And one thing I do want to note, you're going to see that same vendor has the non-foils 4 cents higher. So something to note there is that the foils being in such quantity because of the collector boosters have really driven the price down. Along with that, the quality of the foils for the last year and a half or so, which has been probably the most powerful year and a half from Magic since possibly Urza's. So what we're kind of seeing here is that there is an increased supply of foils along with a decrease in demand for them, essentially, because the curling of the foils has made it so a lot of players aren't able to play them, so it kind of discourages players from foiling out their deck. So that's going to be what's causing that decrease in demand. The increase is obviously from the collector boosters, and that's where we end up seeing a lot of these foils coming in a lot of times less so than the non-foil. But let's get back to it. We just had to go on my little rant digression there. So the gaming company here has 319 copies of the non-foil for $1.43 for Archmage Meredith. Now, why that matters is that is probably one of our best ones to speculate on. Remember, it had 1,200 copies already being put into decks. And then, with almost everything, obviously, there is the extended art version. And we'll just look at that if I can manage to type it in here. Okay. And let's see. So, we've got a few copies at $266. $241, and then that same vendor, the gaming company, has near mint foil extended arts for $4, and then the non-foil extended arts for $470. Now, I'm not sure that that is something I would want to get into. That's a little more expensive. Obviously, it's about 4 times as much as the non-extended art version. And something that I'm going to check against here is we're going to go back to Edhrec and kind of really dig in. And this is something that I did a little earlier. So, full disclosure, I did buy 150 copies of the Archmage Meredith earlier from that gaming company vendor. But let's go ahead and look. We're going to go back to Kaldheim, and we will go to the cards, and we're going to be looking for the same things. We're going to be looking for monocolored cards that are going to be the most played in Commander, and for this set, we do have to scroll down a little ways. We're also going to skip over Raven form there, being that it's a common. We're not going to expect that to go too far. Here we've got Toski, Bearer of Secrets, so that's one we want to check into. And then we've also got Mystic Reflection, both in roughly the same number of decks. And we've also got Bergi, that is sitting around $3. And one other card, we're going to go back to Zendikar Rising to check out. Okay, so we're on Zendikar Rising. We're going to go down to cards again and look for that same thing. And I know what I'm looking for here. So we're going to look at Valakut Awakening. And that card is about $4. And like I said, I already did the homework on this. So this is the most played monocolor card from Zendikar Rising. So we're going to look now at MTG stocks and kind of see what the price trajectory did for this card. And looks like we hit right around low $2 shortly after it was released there, and we are currently up to about $4. Now, and just for the record, I don't want to bore you with all the details, Toski and Mystic Reflection from Kaldheim essentially did similar things. Toski started at about 2, also up to 4. Mystic Reflection actually stayed around 4, but kind of the same deal. On the release weekend, those cards were both at their lowest points and have only moved up since then. So now we're going to take a look at Valakut Awakening on Card Kingdom's website, which, if you're going to go into a lot of copies, like I said, I went in on 150 copies of Archmage Meredith. You want to make sure you've got a spot to sell them. And ideally, I'm looking at buy listing that many copies because shipping 150 copies through TCG Player, selling as singles, hopefully 4-ofs, you're looking at just a ton of work for that, along with the added fees of shipping, selling fees, supply fees for like envelopes, top loaders, that kind of thing. And it's really just a lot cleaner if you can out them all to one spot. So let's go to Valakut Awakening. Now we can see the extended art. The only reason I'm pointing this out is that when we think about Archmage Meredith again, that $4 price tag doesn't leave a lot of room, especially after tax, for outing the card. And this is about 7 months after Valakut Awakening has been released. So we're going to look at Valakut Awakening, the normal card, and $3. It was actually $3.50 about 2 days ago. I unloaded a few copies and possibly dropped the buy price on that. But what I'm looking for is how many copies they're actually looking to buy. So they're looking for 165 on Valakut. And we're going to check this against a couple of other cards too. So let's punch in Toski. And we've got 275 there. Keep in mind, this was only released back in February in Kaldheim. So it's not had as much time to increase in price that Valakut did. 176 there. And let's look at Mystic Reflection for good measure. And 250. So, I mean, not 116 copies they're looking for. So, not quite as good as Toski or Valakut. But can't win them all, I guess. And then keep in mind, like I said, I sold a lot of Valakut Awakening to Card Kingdom a couple days ago, so it's very possible that somebody sold a lot of Mystic Reflections, and that's why it's showing a little bit of a depressed price compared to the other two. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to look back at Archmage Meredith and see if you were to dive in at $1.50. It's fairly reasonable that you could get out probably at $3 for a double up, and at $1.50 or so, maybe 100 copies. So 300 out, make $150 for sitting on some cards for 6 months or so. That's definitely what I'm looking to do. Not saying you need to, but if that is something you're looking to do, kind of use these same skills here and apply those overall. And if you are able to catch this before they're all sold out, I think it's a strategy you can still run with on that card. But I also think it's something that just broadly applies to every set that is released. You kind of saw me do the same thing with Time Spiral Remastered, and as sets keep coming out, I will probably take a look at them in similar fashion and point out cards that I'm looking to pick up on release day. And I did think it was very timely to do an episode in the midst of the release so you could see how prices are looking. In the future, again, I'll probably do like I did with Time Spiral Remastered and go ahead and do it about a week ahead of time, so in case you're looking to do this type of thing, that you can really figure out which cards you're wanting to target before you're almost out of time, essentially. So let's look at Wandering Archaic. So that is a $6 card already, $6.50. And again, this is a rare, and we're not seeing the giant numbers like we saw with Archmage Meredith, where you had 300 copies or so, and obviously I had already picked up 150, so it was actually up over 500 copies when I picked mine up. I did see on Twitter this morning that another vendor had picked up 500 copies of this, and I would have to assume, just judging by the listings for Archmage Meredith, that they probably picked up all of this gaming company's non-foil Wandering Archaics. But another thing we can look for when you are seeing this kind of thing is a colorless card, especially one that's going to affect every opponent and benefit you, generally going to be one that's in high demand for Commander. So one more time, let's just go ahead and take one last look at Archmage Meredith. And keep in mind, there are 5 different versions of this. In my mind, you really can't go wrong with what should be the cheapest playable copy in the non-foil regular version. We don't know yet how the foils are going to be for Strixhaven. It was posted online that they are fairly flat. However, we do have to keep in mind that there is still that giant amount of supply coming in from the collector's boosters. So this $1.40 might be a deal. It might be in the same boat as foil cards from the last set, where they won't appreciate because there's really no demand for them. That's something we'll have to wait and see. If Wizards did get their foiling process figured out, we might see demand for foils kind of return, but that's not something I'm willing to bet on at this time. Alright, so there you have it. That is the strategy and the research that I put in to speculating on cards, or buying cards at their low if you're just looking to pick some up for personal play. If you're interested on getting my exact strategy for speculating on cards, whether they are new or old, drop me a line in the comments and I can maybe make another video on that in the future here. But I do hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something from it. If you do, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you here next time on MTG Money.